Here's the 5th round game of the Spring Online Chess Tournament, and this is off of the back of the weekend tournament that I've just finished, so from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it's now Tuesday. So absolutely kind of tired of chess in terms of playing the game stamina wise. So in this game here, this is a young person that I'm playing. I'm thinking I'll try and use the strategy that I often try and use against young players, is just taking time. And I really wanted to take my time because I was kind of mentally flagging in terms of playing the games because of the congress that we had over the weekend. So I thought it's smarter just to take my time, really take my time, not my own sort of slow plod. I meant really go the extra mile and really use up the time. It's a 45-minute, 15-second game, playing as white. So it opened with e4, and I was going to come out with a quirky opening, throwing it around the side here on the edges, but I thought, well, I'm too tired for that, so let's just play it safe and see what the opponent comes up with. This player is really quite strong, and their rating doesn't really belie their skills. They're part of our club in the juniors, and they're up and coming, so they're winning all the arena tournaments in line chess and stuff like that. So had to be very cagey, and that was another reason for me to just go really slow, see what it is that they're bringing to the table. So develop the knight. You can see that timestamp for my moves that I made, really taking a long time over the moves, which can be annoying to players, but it's a strategy that I felt I needed to use in this game. Opponent pushed through the centre, and then we captured, and then brought the bishop through. So now we're sort of like looking at the target areas being here, so expanding these target areas to this area here, just from this one particular move. So I was going to focus my energies nice and steadily towards this area to see whether or not we could actually get some sort of advantage against the king. That's if they didn't come out with any type of magic. So they developed the knight. So we push the pawn forward, blocking the pawn from pushing down, but opening the dark square bishop as well. And the bishop comes down. As you can see, the timestamp here, I'm on 29 minutes, the opponent's still on 45 and 40, so their time has gone up because of the 15-second increment. They were moving really quick, and I thought, well, this is really nice for me because I'm getting to see the play, but at the same token, I know that my opponent isn't putting the fullest extent of their skills and knowledge and strategy and ability into the game when they're moving that fast. So I was hoping, fingers crossed, that the placement of their pieces was not going to give them the best position. So develop the knight, just supporting the knight, and it's opening up now for the bishop fianchettoing. So I was thinking, just going to blunt, the access for that bishop. So we may as well do that early doors. So now the bishop really doesn't have any play on this diagonal here. So I did think, well, maybe they'll change the trajectory now and go queenside castle. So they continued on this side. So that really gave us really strong targeting areas around this area now, because the king is going to end up being home alone, because we'll look to get the bishop off the board. That was our plan, maybe getting the bishop up and then supported by the queen, and maybe get the bishop off on that side and work the knights quite nicely into the center. This file here is looking a bit funky for our opponent, and because they hadn't pushed through this center pawn here, I'm thinking, this is definitely going to be something that we can work with here, but I was taking my time. So we pushed onto the bishop, and I was surprised they actually captured. So we captured back, so it's a nice position now for the knight, nice position for our rooks on this file here. So they developed their knight through, and now we're just x-ray through with the bishop. Not really looking at doing anything with the bishop other than potentially really taking the bishop off the board. So just did this just to either entice his pawn down to make his area even weaker. but they didn't. They went and castled. So at this stage here, in my head, I'm saying yes, we're on. But the opponent does have skills, so I'm not going to underestimate them in any way, shape or form. We have to work it. We have to see what the opponent is bringing to the table. So we captured the knight because we no longer have the pin through onto the king. And we bring the queen up, as we said, just to start looking for potentially attacking the bishop here. Not in a rush to actually take, you know, because the bishop looks quite nice there. I'm getting quite comfortable with bishops now. So they brought their queen here. So in essence, the bishop could come here, could tantalize attack here, which we do. Just waiting to see whether or not the bishop does take. If the bishop takes, then the queen's in a nice position, I believe. Probably not, but yeah, we did expect the knight to come down. When the knight comes down, then the bishop can come and attack the queen. Okay, so having a look at the target area that we're focusing, because we didn't lose sight of the target area at all. We wanted to obliterate these pieces or manage this area with our pieces as best possible. Currently we're on the periphery, and the opponent has given us quite a lot of air and space for us to play with in this area. So we haven't had to do anything, the opponent's given us this position. Queen moves down. I was shocked at this move as well, because I thought, is he attacking this because our queen is protecting here? But then I realised he's looking potentially to try and disturb this pawn somehow. But I didn't really have too much of a problem with that, because at the end of the day we have a pawn which will take whatever jumps into that area, so they're going to lose out tempo wise. So a smaller piece attacking a higher piece. We wanted to get this knight out of the way because we want to go and challenge the bishop again. So the knight moves, and we then choose to bring the knight up. Now the knight has got a nice little fork here, so that was quite interesting for us to develop that while we're still waiting to get it here. So that jumped in to one of the key squares that we mentioned earlier. So the targeting zone has started to commence. So they brought the rook through, protecting against protecting against the fork. But now that we've got them on the defensive, I'm feeling really quite good about what we're delivering. So we seem to be stopping the opponent from actually formulating an attack and getting his pieces working together without actually trying too hard. The target zone, as mentioned here. I keep reiterating the target zone because that helps me to formulate and focus my strategies as I'm going forward. So then we bring the bishop through, attacking the bishop. I've noticed in evaluation that the computer doesn't like this bishop exchange type situation, but I think it's quite good because it allows you to get closer into the king area and it makes space around the king. So then they push their pawn onto our pawn, and this was the sort of situation I was talking about in terms of, well, if he does take, then our pawn can take. If he's looking to push down, then he's losing space for himself. So I wasn't too sure about that move. Was he giving his queen a bit of space to come here? I wasn't too sure. So we captured the bishop. So now the king is home alone. Yep. So we're very consistent with the messaging that we're saying to ourselves in terms of trying to get the king home alone. Look at the opponent's pieces, they're on the other side of the board, so they're not protecting the king. So now we have to look at formulating some type of attack formation towards their king. Always being mindful, just because we're pressing, got to watch what the opponent can do. That is a key failing of mine. So we bring the queen through now, looking to attack here. Obviously the pawn can push down, but then we do have our extra bits of movement with the knight. Bringing the knight back, it's protecting this pawn, but I'm not too concerned about this pawn really. We're attacking this pawn as well, so we've got like a 2-on-1 with our pawn here as it is. We're making space for our queen. Our queen is looking to sit here if the king is forced to move over and take this pawn, put pressure on that way. There is a gap here for the queen if the knight blocks and the rook moves. So little tiny maneuvers like this, with the rook sort of supporting maybe an attack on this file here. So they did actually capture. So we captured back. So it feels fairly comfortable now. It did take a while. I mean, I'm on 13 minutes now. The opponent is on 46 minutes. So they've accrued time, accrued minutes. You know, a minute and something. That's how fast the opponent was moving. And this is how slow we were moving, purposefully, for appropriate positions on the board. So the knight comes down and is put like a 2-on-1 onto this pawn here. So I thought, well, I can turn that on its head by actually attacking this pawn, which has a check on the king, which would then fork the rook. So I thought that was quite a nice touch, and then maybe then get the rook here supporting, putting a 2-on-1 on the pawn, and maybe getting the other rook behind, simple as it is, to attack this area. So we're already looking at zoning in on the target area. So they bring their rook, protecting the pawn, and we bring our rook because we've got a 2-on-1 here. The gauge bar showing that the black is winning. Obviously I didn't see that. I felt really comfortable with this position, and I was expecting maybe a pawn push down or something like that, probably looking for the queen to come and sit here. His rook comes and challenges, can move it back again, do you know what I mean? So all the way down to the bottom. So I wasn't too concerned about any of that. So then they brought their king across. The king is home alone, the rook isn't protecting it. Our queen could come here and sit quite nicely, looking to take this pawn, which we do. So we've started the process of attacking the lone king, and the rook comes to defend the pawn. So we can take this pawn here because the rook is no longer defending with the support from the knight. So as you can see, the gauge bar showing it's kind of out and out winning here, and we're on 12 minutes and the opponent's on 44 minutes. Moving very fast. Speed over position, we've mentioned these types of concepts before. Position usually is better, so we move the rook out of the way, the queen coming down to attack. So I felt like these were like sort of desperate moves now coming in, but I was always very wary, because in over the board games and online games, when I'm in a favourable position, the opponents always find a way of upsetting the apple cart. So I wanted to play it nice and steady, and then the queen comes up and I'm thinking, is he looking to take the pawn here? But then I can just move my knight out of the way to get my knight into the game even more, covering off key squares. So we've got one piece on the periphery of the target area, well, one in the center, one on the periphery, and one on the periphery again, and we've got one supporting the attack on the main area that we focused on at the beginning of the game. So look at how many pieces I've got around his king. It's really quite smothering. Okay, so still not out of the woods yet. We still need to jostle for the position. So now our rook can put a check on their king. At some stage, I believe his queen is going to have to sacrifice if he's going to want to save any action. So he does actually take the rook. Knight captures back. So these positions, I've seen these positions lost. Just because I've got a queen, it doesn't mean I've won the game. So took my time. I'm on 11 minutes at the minute. They're on 39, so they're starting to think a little bit, but it is a little bit late to the party. So we come down with the queen. We're looking for here to actually get the knight off the board, maybe get this pawn off, try and choke the king, depending on where the king goes. So he's gone to the back. So I'm thinking, well, if we do get up here and if he does try to get a safe haven here, we can push these pawns up, well, this one pawn, then it's blocking his traversing down either side. And is there a potential checkmate position that that can be gleaned from there? So we come up with a check, capture the knight, and the rook comes to defend the pawn, and we do as we said, blocking off the king's passageway. The king can't come down here anymore, so our queen was looking at this nice position here, getting the rook here to block off the king from moving up to the top, and more or less it's like a checkmate position. Still have to be careful. My king felt fairly safe, so the rooks couldn't really come and trouble it. And as we say, the rook was coming down, but it's not. There's no meat on the bones there. So we bring the rook up to block the passageway for the king, and then they're pushing the pawn, but we come down with the queen here. At first I thought, oh, that's checkmate, but realised his rook can come into block, or he can drop his pawn here. But either way, it's just delaying the inevitable. They drop the pawn and then checkmate. So I was really excited about that game. 12 minutes left with 39 for my opponent, and really tired, really flagging. And I'm so glad that I was really tired and really flagging, because I just took my time and found some really nice positions on the board in this one. I'm really pleased with this game, and I'm going to sleep now.